I saw this article here from PC Gaming that, to be honest with you, really caught my attention. This particular article has to do with Baldur's Gate 3 and a former BioWare producer talking about what Baldur's Gate 3 has done to the gaming industry and essentially what they've done for those style of video games and how they have set this new bar that they essentially believe is unreachable, right? And I've talked about this many times in videos and live streams, especially where I've said that Baldur's Gate 3 has done really bad damage to the industry because let's be honest with you, most people that are working in the gaming industry are untalented. Most people that are working in the gaming industry now more than ever are people that got there in a means that wasn't due to merit. And it's unfortunate. And now what's going to end up happening is a game like Baldur's Gate is going to set the standard for a lot of people who have played this game. And when they go play other RPGs, guess what's going to happen to those games? They're going to get crucified. So let's get into this article, guys, from PC Gamer. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, again, guys, a former BioWare producer saying this, I think is hilarious because we already know what happened, right? Baldur's Gate 3 came out and it was universally praised by all kinds of people. Leftists, right-wingers, center people. All people were praising this game and playing the game. It is still one of the most played games right now on Steam DB. I don't even have to go to the numbers. You guys can go see the numbers for yourselves. I'm telling you, the game, it's ridiculous. And now it's actually, let's check the numbers because it's got a new patch. Hold on. Yeah, look at this. So the game just released its brand new patch, patch 8, which is its last patch. And now there are almost 90,000 people playing this game on Steam right now, early as hell in the morning, with a 24-hour peak of 116,127. And obviously, you already know of the all-time peak at 875,343. Baldur's Gate 3 was a massive success for Larian Studios. It is unfortunate that they are not going to be involved in Baldur's Gate 4. That's been given off to another team, and we won't talk about that. But it's a team that was led by somebody who, you know, potentially may have made Dragon Age: The Veilguard. But anyway, BioWare producer saying this is hilarious, and it is unfortunate because Baldur's Gate 3 is going to set a standard that these people cannot keep up with. That's basically what I'm trying to say. But let's see what he has to say. Baldur's Gate 3 is a singular game, a step up for the CRPG genre, proof that turn-based combat and deep, thoughtful storytelling is still fashionable, no matter what some live service brainwormed EA suit might tell you, and likely will be one of the best RPGs that will arrive this decade. Now, I agree with all this. Ironically, I know it's PC gamers, shocking, but I agree. Every single suit at EA, Ubisoft, and companies like that, they all want to do live service slop. I've been making videos talking about this for a few weeks now, even a couple of months now at this point. They all want live service, hero shooters, extraction shooters, battle royales. That's what they want. They think that's going to be their golden goose. That's what they're looking for. So when you get good single-player video games like Baldur's Gate 3 show up, it proves that that is what the majority of people want. Not necessarily the RPG aspect. They just want a good single-player game. Maybe it can have some online elements, but for the most part, a game dedicated to the person playing it. That's what they really want, and it proves that. The numbers don't lie. It is a massive success. And so singular, in fact, that there's been an enduring discourse about whether it's raised the bar for the genre or whether that's setting a standard impossible for other studios to meet. Mark Dara, an executive producer at BioWare until 2020, clearly leans towards the latter, as he explained on his YouTube channel yesterday. Now, before we get into what he says, I want to make it very clear. I think it's hilarious that somebody who used to work at BioWare is saying this because the moment Dragon Age: The Veilguard dropped, it was immediately compared to Baldur's Gate 3, and for rightful reasons. These are two games that were supposed to compete against each other, right? These are two games that were supposed to, you know, kind of battle it out. Baldur's Gate 3 obviously came out well before that, and then Dragon Age: The Veilguard came out to try to be the answer that BioWare had for Baldur's Gate 3. Now, BioWare was initially one of the ones who made Baldur's Gate, ironically, and so when Baldur's Gate 3 was taken over by Larian Studios and they exploded the franchise, I am sure BioWare was a little bit salty about that because, you know, their previous Baldur's Gate were nowhere near as successful as Baldur's Gate 3, or universally loved for that matter, outside of a niche crowd. Baldur's Gate 3 really took that element, took that name, and made it mainstream, and BioWare was not the ones who did it. So they got a little bit salty. And then their response was Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which was a video game that offered nothing like Baldur's Gate 3. Literally nothing. Instead of your turn-based combat, it gave you a simplistic action combat that was extremely boring and extremely repetitive. It gave you a storyline that was extremely forgettable. It gave you characters that were so damn insufferable that nobody cared. It was literally like, it was night and day difference. So people were making fun of Veilguard because it's like, bro, you have Baldur's Gate 3 here. It's an older game. It is doing better numbers than your newer game, and you're not even close. And so, again, it led to a bunch of cope. But anyway, so he says Baldur's Gate 3 was immensely successful, and it did change the landscape in terms of who was willing to look at an RPG. Dara explains, but I think its impact on the way that games are actually developed is going to be more muted than people who are outside the video game industry might be expecting. Dara explains that it's not about time or money, though. Baldur's Gate 3 did have both, but rather he posits that the game was a perfect storm of factors working together to make this game work, some of which are externalities that aren't something that another studio can replicate. Those factors include working with D&D, arguably at the peak of its popularity, and its popularity has since declined, but also a unique combo of licensing, goodwill, and studio structure that has allowed Larian to go against conventional trends and industry wisdoms about RPGs, having an unvoiced protagonist, having cinematics that are simplified in some cases, and so on. Now, I won't disagree with Dara and say that these things haven't been tremendously unpopular with AAA developers, but I've been banging the unvoiced protagonists are better drum since Dragon Age Origins, and I'm feeling a little bit miffed. I've been plenty immersed by CRPGs such as Pillars of Eternity, where most of the action just happens in a text box. Glossy cinematics and a Shepherd as heroes are nice, but they're also completely overvalued and have been ever since Dragon Age made the jump. Now, listen, I don't necessarily disagree. I don't mind silent protagonists. I think they can obviously work. I think there are a lot of famous characters from RPGs or video games in general that are silent protagonists, right? But at the end of the day, man, you know, it's how you deliver the story. It's up to the studio and how they actually craft the storyline and craft the video game to match that storyline. It's up to them and how they portray that. And it will resonate with players if they can feel the passion. If gamers can feel the passion that was made in what they're playing, it will resonate. That is obvious. And this is why Baldur's Gate 3 was such a massive success. Because while Dragon Age: The Veilguard was trying to make you feel bad about misgendering, Baldur's Gate 3 was saying, you know what? Play the fucking game the way you want. Play the game you want, however you want. Doesn't matter. If you want to be whatever, if you want to be the straightest straight, play the game you want, right? This is the problem. This is the difference. Larian Studios knew that when they were making an RPG that there was going to be Republicans that bought shoes too. Does that make sense? They knew that. So they made the video game in a way for that everybody can enjoy the game. And that is how an RPG is genuinely supposed to be. Whereas Veilguard made the game with a single message in mind that they wanted to hammer home. And even if you try to avoid it, even if you try to avoid the whole trans storyline and you didn't choose to trans yourself, it's amazing that Dragon Age: The Veilguard literally gave you an option to trans yourself within an hour of playing. I'm not kidding. It gives you an option saying, hey, do you want to go down this trans ideology storyline or do you not? And even if you pick no, doesn't matter because it's still going to hammer it home throughout the storyline and the other characters that surround you, Tosh being the obvious one that people complained about. But there are even other regular non-important characters, just NPCs that are running around. There was a blacksmith in one of the cities that literally told you they are non-binary. I don't know why when I was just going to the blacksmith to utilize the blacksmith. Why would I select the blacksmith? And then all of a sudden she's like, yeah, by the way, I'm non-binary. Who cares, bro? Who cares? That is the difference between the two games. And that is why Baldur's Gate 3 is such a big success. On top of the fact that it's just a better game, right? If you take the storyline out of it and you look at the actual gameplay, the combat, the way that the world is and the way that the map exploration is, it is a much better video game. The dialogue actually has, your choices actually matter big time, whereas Dragon Age: The Veilguard gives you this false sense of choice. There are so many comparisons, so many pros and cons that you could go over between the two, but not even going to bother. You guys basically already know. But then it says maybe the video game development industry is wrong about these assumptions about what it could get away with. But to a large degree, when they look at Baldur's Gate 3, what they see is a game that's very successfully executes on what it's trying to do. But what it's trying to do isn't something that a lot of other games will be allowed to do. Well, that's because all these other studios are playing it safe, whereas Larian decided to do what they wanted to do and knew that what they were doing was the right thing. So if these other studios want to be successful, perhaps they should focus on actually doing what the gamers want and entertaining the people that are going to be buying their game instead of focusing so much on whatever the message for their game is. Who cares, bro? Just make the game, make it enjoyable, let it resonate, and let the gamers feel your passion. The problem is these games are being made by people that don't have passion. That's really what it is. They have zero passion for the industry that they're in. They have zero passion for the gamers they're selling games to, and really, that resonates more than anything else. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it if you could like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.